Hi guys, welcome to B's Show, and today I have with me is Danni Swallow, who is also a senior at Bellarmine. She's working over in Jeffersonville, Indiana at Hope Bridge. Why don't you tell us how you got started in that career and kind of what the job is like?
Yeah, so Hope Bridge is an autism therapy center for kids, and when I got started, I was actually working at a different therapy center here in Louisville, but then I kind of wanted to be able to grow in the area, so I switched to a different company that could help me grow.
So what are your main duties? I know you recently moved up a little bit, so what kind of work does that imply for you now?
So now I'm a registered behavior technician, or we call them RBTs.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm able to do is I work with the kids on a one-on-one basis and do behavioral therapy with them. So we have our higher ups, our BCBAs, they create their programs, and then we do them with the kids.
So what do you need for your job, basically, like the qualifying factors, I guess, like degree?
For most of them, you just need your high school diploma.
Okay.
Because you have to go through the RBT training process, but once you move higher up and you want to go into a BCBA role, then you need to get master's level education or your bachelor's degree.
Right, and are you wanting to stay in that career field once you graduate? Because I know you are planning on going to grad school, so where does that kind of play in?
So it's kind of in the middle right now. I do want to work in a school and be a school psychologist, but being a BCBA is something that I already know, and I kind of already know the track for it, so it would be easy for me to go that way. So I'm kind of in the middle of the two right now.
And what's the age group you work with? Like, is there a defined group, or is it like all ages?
So it's kind of all ages. It just depends on your facility as well. So the facility I was at last summer, the kids that I worked with were around the 10 to 12 range.
Okay.
But at my facility here, I can work with any age range from the youngest we have is around 2, and then the oldest we have is 8, I think.
How is it working with someone that's as young as 2 versus like a 12-year-old? Like, obviously the noticeable differences, but like what's the challenge there?
Probably communication is the biggest challenge, because with autistic kids, like, some of them are nonverbal. So when you take into account the age as well, it can lead to them being more nonverbal. So the communication piece is kind of harder. Versus when I was working with 11 and 12-year-olds, they were able to fully verbally communicate with me.
Right. So you're not allowed to have your phone out at work at all, correct?
Correct.
So we will not be adding any photos or videos from her job unless I find them on the internet, which I probably will, but they are not allowed to have their phones out, which means no pictures of the children, no personal identity put out on the internet, because that's just to keep them safe, right?
Yeah, we have really strict HIPAA rules too. Like, we can't even use their first names if we're talking about them outside the context of our facility. So we do what's called using your HIPAA name. So it would be the first 3 letters of your first name and the first 3 letters of your last name, and you put those together, and then that's your HIPAA name.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, give me an example. So with your name, it would be Danni Swallow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I guess mine would be Bees?
Yeah.
Oh, that kind of works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what are some challenges? I know it's not all rays of sunshine over there, obviously. So, like, what's the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome working with the children?
Probably, that's a hard question. It's just the patience factor. I think it takes people a really long time to get used to.
Yeah.
Because you have to be really patient with these kids, because we're not forcing them to do anything. They have to let us be in a place with them where they can grow and learn.
Right.
So if they're like with autism, they have like physical stems and vocal stems. Like, if they're in the middle of something like that, we can't be running therapy programs with them. So it's just having that patience to give them the time they need to kind of settle into the moment, so that then we can teach them and then they can learn properly.
Right. And what's your main way when you first meet a new child? Like, what's your best way, in your opinion, to connect with them to where they feel comfortable with you and being around you?
Yeah, so we call it pairing, and essentially you kind of just give them, we do about 15-20 minutes at the start of your session. Doesn't matter if you're new to the kid or you've been working with them for months, we always do pairing. So we kind of just let them take lead with us, and like if they want to play, if they want to have a snack, if they want to watch like YouTube videos, we just let them do that and then kind of interact with them throughout that process.
Right.
So like if a kid wants to play with toys but they're not comfortable with me playing with them as well, then I kind of just stay off to the side and like talk about what they're doing or play with something else that they're not playing with, just so they know that like I'm there and like I'm going to be hanging out with them for that day.
Right. So is this a live-in situation for the children, or is it like just day-to-day? They come in the morning, leave at night?
Yeah, it's day-to-day. So what we do is called applied behavior analysis, and that is a 8-hour program 5 days a week. So they come in the morning, and some kids either get there around 8:30 or 9, just depending on the kid and their parents, and then they leave us at around 4:30 or 5 every day.
Okay. And is that like strictly to Indiana students, or?
No, they're we have Hope Bridge facilities, I think, in Jefferson or in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, and I think a few other states as well. So, and we all follow the same like guidelines and protocol.
Right. Okay, so I know you did work at Home of the Innocents before. So what was the main difference, like transitioning from that type of environment to Hope Bridge?
I think just the behavioral piece of it, honestly, because I mean, at Home of the Innocents, the kids who were there because they had behavioral problems. So that would kind of cause them to like act out, and they would have like anger or aggression towards us, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's more of a directed form of behavioral issues versus at Hope Bridge, the kids don't have behavioral issues because they're mad at us.
Right.
They have behavioral issues because there's something wrong in their sensory environment that they can't control, so it causes them to have those behavioral issues.
Right. How would you all handle, I guess, an issue or like I don't know the word, like an upset person at Home of the Innocents?
Depending on the situation, if they're just upset, that's kind of like just take them out of the room and have a conversation one-on-one with them and use kind of like de-escalation strategies.
Right.
Versus if they had they were upset and started having behavioral issues that were violent towards a person or themselves, then we would have to use, we called it safety crisis management, but it's basically different kinds of holds you have to use so that you can keep them safe, keep yourself safe, and keep everyone else safe as well.
Right. And what made you want to do the change from those two jobs?
I just kind of realized that wasn't for me. I just don't really, I like to think I'm a very positive person.
Right.
And in all honesty, the staff there wasn't very positive. They were sort of negative, and it's really hard to change the environment with one person.
Exactly, and a staff in that environment shouldn't really be negative. You can't be negative in that type of job. If you're a negative person, don't work with kids, especially troubled children. Yeah. And a lot of people do, and I feel like a lot of people don't notice that those are the type of people that work with those children.
Exactly.
Like,
I didn't realize that either. And then I got there and it wasn't the best. So
yeah. So how did you find the Hope Bridge job?
I just started looking for new places once I left Home of the Innocents. I just kind of looked for places to apply to, and I was talking to like my mom about it. I was like, oh, I really want to do like ABA therapy again. Like this seems pretty cool, but I didn't want to go back to my old place. Right. So I was just kind of looking and found Hope Bridge and was like, oh, cool. And they were able to get me certified as an RBT within 3 weeks of me being there.
Well, that's neat. And is that what you need to work there, an RBT? So what is that?
Yeah, so that's a registered behavior technician. Okay. So we run their therapy every day, and we're the ones who have the most contact with the kids every day. Right. So
how did you get, like, what was that, like a class form? Or?
So we would do, every day we would come into work, and we have a trainer at our facility, and she would spend the first entire half of our day just doing training on like different concepts in ABA, like different procedures we should use in ABA, and then the second half of the day we would spend the whole time with a peer mentor. Right. And we would start out like watching them with their kid and doing therapy with them, and then we would slowly incorporate ourselves into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess since we're running out of time, what's the biggest piece of information you have for any student or any person in general who's wanting to go in a career like that? I guess basically the pros and the cons and like to consider it all. So what's your biggest piece of advice?
I think just learn how to be patient is my biggest piece of advice. I thought I wasn't a patient person when I started this, and over time I've really learned how to develop that patience with kids, because you never know how they're gonna interact with you that day. They could be in a bad mood because they didn't sleep. They could be in a bad mood because they didn't get the breakfast they wanted, and it will throw off their entire day. So I think just remembering, like, you're not causing a problem for them, you're there to help them, and just be patient and let the kids work through what they need to work through and be there for them.
Exactly. Well, if anybody has any questions, I will attach Danni's email to the bottom of this video. So thank you all for watching and have a great weekend.